We're 3 weeks into the NFL season, and the waiver wires, honestly, they're starting to dry up. You're either heading into week 4 at the top of the standings, looking to capitalize on your winning record. Maybe you're 2-1, but you're barely scraping by. Or worst case scenario, you're in desperation mode and you're looking to pull your team out of the gutter. And one of the fastest ways you can do that is by trading for the right players to add to your fantasy football team. So on today's episode, we have 3 guys that you should buy right now that will help you improve your fantasy football team. I'm your host, Shaun, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, good friends, and fellow knowers of ball, Keegan Thompson and Aidan Haller. Boys, we just recorded our sales episode. That was a great time. It just felt good to have Keegan back in the saddle. Welcome back, my friend. Keegan, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Yeah, I said it on the last episode, but took a little week break. Sometimes life just gets in the way of your other jobs. If you're like me, you're doing one job 9 to 5, just like Shaun and Aidan. You're doing this job 5 to 9 after, and sometimes you just don't have time for both. You got to find your balance in life, and that's why you have coworkers to pick you up when you need it. Aidan and Shaun held the boat down just fine.
Held the boat down. Hell yeah. Aidan
kept it up, I guess. Didn't hold it down.
Yeah. Hey, shit, man. You can hold a boat down. As long as you got 10 toes, you can hold anything down. Aidan, how you doing, man?
We're doing good, man. We're always doing good. I'm ready to talk buys.
We're always doing good.
We've got some fun guys to talk about here. I hope everyone's nice about it. The comments have been really nice lately, so let's keep up the good vibes in there. Mean team's cruising. No mean comments. So no, I'm ready to go, man.
I'm sure there's zero correlation to the fact that I took a week off from videos.
Well, we're A/B testing, so we're going to see this week.
It's been pretty benign, too. We've just been recommending players. When you start to sell guys, at Laundry Bros, as Adam Levitan entered the chat, and they were like, why would you do that?
The Laundry Bros of Atlanta Falcons,
they're ready.
Were all over us this summer. They're ready to attack.
They might be ready for today.
Thank you, Laundry Bros.
Yeah, there might be some action.
Thank you for everything that you've done for this this channel. All right, the format for today's episode is pretty simple. We each have one guy we're buying, and as we talk through each guy, we're going to share the pros and cons of trading for this player. We'll also walk through the type of package that you would have to give up to acquire these players. We're going to use the Establish the Run trade calculator. It's pretty nice. We used it for the sell episode. We're going to use it for this one as well. Quick caveat, just because one of us is buying a player doesn't mean we all are. So we're just going to talk through it. I think it's a good opportunity here to weigh different opinions. But before we do that, one quick thing. I'm sure people, maybe possibly even you found us for the first time and you're watching. You're like, who are these guys? You're undecided on what to do with the Regression to the Mean podcast. Aidan, what should the good people at home be doing if maybe this is the first time they've watched it, second time, third time, and they still haven't maybe decided to join the Mean team?
Yeah, what I like to say is kick your feet up. Get comfy for the next 20, 30 minutes. We're going to talk about 3 guys to buy. You get to use your knowledge, your ball-knowing knowledge to determine, what do you think? Do you want to hang out with these 3 guys going forward? Join the Mean team. So like, comment, subscribe, whatever you're feeling. Sit down and enjoy the ride.
Love that.
Just like that. Simple.
We had Keegan do that for the first one. We had Aidan do it for the second. These guys are ultra talented at pandering. So shout out to these two. They know what they're doing. All right. We are going to kick things off here with a future first ballot Hall of Famer. Always fun to acquire a fan favorite here of the Regression to the Mean podcast. Aidan, why are you trading for the veteran Mike Evans?
Yeah, I think this is such an easy buy low opportunity for Mike Evans. I think people are freaking out over the last 2 weeks, and just take a breather. Everything's going to be okay with Mike Evans. The guy's an absolute stud. Went bananas week 1, pretty quiet week 2, in a week that Chris Godwin, I think, caught over 10 passes. The guy just went absolutely nuts, and then got the Pat Surtain treatment last week. We're going to see it this week with Garrett Wilson. He's already done it multiple times this year. The Pat Surtain matchup is not fun. But just looking ahead, Philly, right away, they've given up the 4th most amount of yards to fantasy wide receivers. So, he's already going to bounce back as soon as this week. But just looking at him, the usage really hasn't declined with Mike Evans. I think some people may be thinking, Jalen McMillan's here. Chris Godwin is, the clear one in this offense. When that's really not the case. They're still running the same amount of routes, same amount of snaps. He's on the field. In terms of their separation, too, he's been the best separator on that team by far, winning just about 40% of his routes. Next is, about half that, 23% with McMillan. You probably guessed it. Chris Godwin doesn't do a whole lot of separating, but he's savvy as hell, gets open in the middle of the field. So that's Chris Godwin's thing. And then just looking at Mike Evans, man, the guy's never finished outside of the top 22 in terms of PPR scoring at the end of a fantasy football season. So he wakes up and produces every single year.
it's
1,000 yards
how
left
good
and
he
right.
is, dude.
Yeah, it's like there's a whole lot of panic here. I wouldn't, I'm actively looking how can I acquire him personally, because it's going to get better. Last week was just weird overall. I think for Tampa, Shaun kind of called the letdown spot. They were, absolutely blazing the first 2 weeks out of the season. Letdown spot in Denver, but a really nice get right spot in Philly. And then a couple of games after that, the, about middle of the pack matchups. So still really like Mike Evans. He's still got that deep play potential too. The targets I think are fine if it's not up there with Chris Godwin, because Chris Godwin's not going to hit, 50, 70 yarders like Mike Evans still has shown he can, and which he did in week 1. So Mike Evans, man, go get Mike Evans.
What are you trading? What are you giving up for Mike Evans, Aidan?
So this is going to be hot. The first one I would do, I'd give up Drake London. And I know that's a little hot. The last 2 weeks are trending in the right direction. They are. But it's like it doesn't feel like Drake London has like monster games in him. Like he's scored 17 and 18 the last 2 weeks. And it's like, man, like kind of just feels like where you're going to be on a good night. Do you have 30, 40 point potential like Mike Evans? Probably not. So probably trading away Drake London. Another spicier one that I don't think I'd do, I'd consider, I still might do it, to be honest, would be Brandon Ayuk. I think you could make a case to trade away Mike Evans for Brandon, or to trade away Brandon Ayuk for Mr. Mike Evans. I think those, two are pretty comparable, but Mike Evans, yeah, I'm probably taking over both of those two guys. What do you think?
Well, Drake London, 18 points. That's awesome. That's his ceiling. No, I'm fucking around with Drake London. It's like he's putting up just really solid wide receiver 2 numbers. Who would have ever thought that Drake London would be a solid, low end wide receiver 2 instead of being a high end wide receiver 1 like he was drafted? No one would ever assume that. I will say the Brandon Ayuk thing is super interesting because both have been kind of relatively quiet. Evans had his big week 1. Outside of that, Ayuk has been kind of a letdown. And I feel like Evans is going to get going. It's just been back-to-back kind of weird matchups. The Rod God is absolutely feasting. But Baker is going to start feeding Mike Evans. It's going to happen sooner rather than later. And it is kind of an opportunity to buy low, so to speak, on a future Hall of Famer in Mike Evans. By any means, I do not think he's cooked. The numbers are good from what I can see. Keegan, do you have a POV here on Mike Evans?
If you just went face value, like off this trade calculator, I don't know if you're going to walk away loving the deal you made. I personally wouldn't trade away Brandon Ayuk knowing he's had a slow start because he missed some camp time. I would try and capitalize on the low performances he had and shoot your sights on somebody like Steph Diggs. Like if the Diggs owner or the Mike Evans owner wanted Diggs and I had Diggs, like I would go for that. Like it's not going to look pretty in this trade calculator right now, but try and incorporate the down 2 weeks that Mike Evans has had. But I would try and be looking that way. Like Ayuk Evans feels like too much of a 1-to-1. I don't know if I'm winning there. Obviously you want your league mates to feel like you're winning in a trade, right? But we all think that Tank Dell's going to keep, getting good usage and some of those balls are going to come his way. Nico Collins is Nico Collins, and Steph Diggs is going to be great on getting the underneath stuff, but trying to acquire a wide receiver and catch a 50-yard pass and take it home at any given moment is the play here. So I'm all for buying Mike Evans. Just want to make sure that I don't buy it at the wrong price and go even on my deal, because you could just keep Ayuk,
Yeah, Steph Diggs is super interesting. ETR, the trade calculator, has him way undervalued. I think your fantasy managers that you play with will not have Stephon Diggs undervalued. He's played pretty well through the first 3 weeks of the year. He's the wide receiver 10 overall in PPR, whereas Mike Evans is, I think, the wide receiver 40. So that's executing a sell high, buy low. If you're doing that, that's kind of the way that you want to do it. And at the end of the day, I do think overall Mike Evans should bounce back, especially against Philadelphia. Philadelphia has gotten routed by wide receivers this year. They're at home. I think it's a great spot to trade for Mike Evans, honestly. And I think I'd give up Drake London. I think I'd be cool with that.
Speaking of Philly, you could finagle a Devonta Smith, Mike Evans deal out of there. Like that's fairly even.
Oh man, that's hard.
I'm not sure what side I'm taking, but if you wanted to go just 1-for-1 values, like that's something you could look at as well. Another player who's on the rise right now that the calculator won't necessarily match the value, but who's emerging as the number one target is Zay Flowers. Maybe you've got Zay and people are buying into that vision. It's definitely not fair on the calculator, but you look at who's surging and who's falling right now, like that's a good buy low, sell high opportunity there. So
DJ Moore,
yeah, I mean,
another
Zay
one
Flowers
you could probably talk someone into.
Zay Flowers has got excellent utilization over the first 3 weeks. So like Dwayne McFarland's utilization score has Drake London and Zay Flowers kind of clustered together, which I think is interesting. And you got Mike Evans all the way down here. So yeah, it's bounce back time for Evans. I think he's a great buy low. I think this is a great one, Aidan. This Bucs offense has been great. Like we love the rod god, but you think they're going to start getting Mike Evans involved at this point. So I think this is an excellent buy low in the situation.
I'm already monitoring his 1,000 yards. He needs about 904 or something like that across 14 games to get to 1,000 yards. So
he'll have his 200-yard game that he always has every year, like clockwork. So you got to go pick him up. This other guy you're picking up here, I'd say the buy low window may have closed because Amari Cooper went off in week 3. If you believe in regression, this was kind of one of the biggest positive regression candidates in all of fantasy football. His utilization had been fantastic through 2 weeks with 0 production. And then he, gets to face off against a pretty cakewalk secondary against the Giants, and he goes 7 for 86 and 2 tugs. He ran one of the nastiest routes in the red zone I've seen a receiver run this year. Amari Cooper, Keegan, you love Cooper. You can't quit Cooper. You didn't put him in your lineup this week, but why are you trading for Amari Cooper right now in fantasy?
Yeah, I have him on 2 teams, and I played him in one, and I sat him on the other because you got to diversify the portfolio, I still ended up winning those matchups, so it was fine. But yeah, this is still a buy low to me and also a buy high at the same time. Like I know he had one good week, but the things that I like about Cleveland, even though he didn't hit home the first 2 weeks, they're second in neutral pass rate right now, despite how bad Deshaun Watson has been. And they're 7th in team wide receiver usage across the league based on expected half PPR points. Like they're going to continue to throw the ball, whether Watson's playing quarterback or not. Like I'm also trying to bake in the idea that potentially Jameis Winston jumps in the lineup here. That Jameis Winston gets inserted in the lineup at any point this season, like it's wheels up for Cooper. And you saw this week, I mean, he scores the first touchdown of the game. Very clear that he's still trying to get the ball. Deshaun Watson's still trying to get the ball to Cooper. They just haven't been able to connect. But so many things are bright here for Amari Cooper. 4th in expected fantasy points per game, only behind Cooper Kupp, Malik Neighbors, and Deebo Samuel. And he's only put up 11.8 actual fantasy points per game at PPR compared to his 18.6 expected. So a lot of room for regression still. 30% of the team's first read target share. I mean, I know he already had the bounce back game, but you could just get more and more of this. I mean, look where he's at in terms of actual point production down there versus where he's at in expected fantasy points. Like it's coming for Amari Cooper, and I don't know if you want to miss out on it.
Yeah, that catchable target rate of 56% here, that's going to improve. I mean, he does win downfield, and it has been kind of weird with Shaun, redacted, I'm sorry. So you have to think he continues to regress his mean in the positive direction at this point. Aidan, are you going out there and jumping at Amari Cooper, or are you kind of hands off until a quarterback change in Cleveland?
Yeah, I'd go get him. Last week was really encouraging.
Go get him.
I'm just looking at the guys, like just looking at the ETR rankings, like just like a couple of guys are ahead of him right now. They've got Amari Cooper as wide receiver 31, which feels a little low to me. Like I'd go get rid of Michael Pittman for Amari Cooper. Probably go get rid of T. Higgins for Amari Cooper. Both of those guys are ahead of him. I'd get rid of Jameson Williams for Amari Cooper. So it's like there's a couple of guys ahead of him that I think are kind of no brainers for me. I think JMO makes you think a little bit, but like Pittman for sure. T. Higgins for sure. Shit, man, like you're even getting to like the Diggs, Zay Flowers range where you're at least thinking about it again. So I think we missed like the buy at the very ground floor, but there's probably still some people a little skeptical. Can Shaun keep this? Can they sustain this level with him? Is Jameis ever going to arrive, etc.? So I think no, I really like this one, Keegan. I like how your tone has shifted on Amari over the last 2 weeks. It's good to see him back in your good graces.
There's a couple really good options out there, like equal value wide receiver 1-to-1 stuff. Roma Dunze is a potential option. I love the Michael Pittman call out. I had that in my notes as well. This hurts me to say he was one of my favorite players to draft in our video that we did together, Shaun. Jalen Waddle is another person that you could try and finagle your way to get.
Not your guy.
Amari Cooper. It sucks.
Easy.
That would be a buy. That'd be a sell low on Waddle. I don't think I'd give up Waddle until at least there's at least a quarterback improvement.
Until we see Snoop Huntley play.
Yeah. It's never been more over.
Rashid Shaheed is another one. A potential buy low-ish, also selling high-ish is Deontay Johnson. The Deontay Johnson trade would be interesting to me because what is the lifeline on Andy Dalton actually playing, as a starting quarterback? Because as long as Andy Dalton plays, I think Deontay Johnson could hit home. But I think I heard to Dave Cannell say like the plan is for Bryce to still start at some point this year. So it's not going to be Andy Dalton for the rest of the year. I don't know when that'll be, but there's a lot of good 1-to-1 options here.
I'll believe it when I see it, when Bryce Young takes the field for the Panthers again this season. But, it's a long NFL year. There's wild swings week to week. Dalton could get injured. Who knows? DJ is tough because the Thielen injury plus the future the future matchups they have, like DJ's a good buy candidate in my opinion.
Volume.
Man, Michael Pittman, that's a trade because
I would absolutely make that for Amari.
And I'm a big fan of Michael Pittman because he reminds me of Keenan Allen, but he's just not necessarily a stylistic fit with Anthony Richardson. Now, maybe they start to change the constitution of this offense. It's been a lot of impossible hero throws for Richardson. It's been rough. They're asking him to do a lot right now. And maybe they start to do some intermediate stuff and Michael Pittman starts to do well in those areas of the field because Michael Pittman's not winning deep. That's not really his game.
Yeah, the problem is Josh Downs just came back and he tied Pittman for team lead in targets in week 1 of being back. And like if you're talking about the short intermediate stuff, like they always planned on that being Downs. He just got injured coming into the year. So there's competition where Michael Pittman wins. And if Richardson's only going to throw in that area 6 times a game and the rest of them are these long shots, the Pittman dreams of last year could be dead for sure. So
And
I don't know.
read something that they were running 25 less plays per game than their opponents. Like, what the fuck is going on with them?
Look, Richardson's only completing like 11 passes a game right now. There might not be a better time than to move off of Michael Pittman.
But let's be real. Like, if you're an Amari Cooper owner, why would you swap him for Michael Pittman? Like the value says do it, but like you would really need to paint that one pretty.
Hey, I wish we could have recorded this last week. All right, I would have people buying or selling out Amari Cooper for dirt
for sure.
So.
Yeah. No, it's
who was the name outside of Pittman? What was the other name we called out?
Shaheed is another good one. That's a decent 1-to-1.
That's a good one because I love Shaheed. You guys know I've been caught repeating my Shaheed several times. But
look at what just happened when he doesn't connect on the long touchdown throws.
Yeah,
but he had incredible usage. The fact that he put up a 0 burger is nuts.
That's what I'm saying though. That's what happens. Like those, I know his route tree's getting opened up. I know his role is changing, but still like big play touchdown dependent through 3 weeks.
And Amari Cooper's had a sleeper Hall of Fame career. We've talked about this, and I know this might get some hate, but that's insane what he's done. He's done this for 3 different teams now. And obviously he's not as good as Mike Evans, but I mean, he's had some monster years over the years, and he's been just amazing since he's been to Cleveland. And he's just had really terrible quarterback play. And I think I feel like Watson getting benched is a foregone conclusion. I just don't know when that's going to occur. And if that does, I think Cooper, much like Deontay Johnson,
goes nuts
in a more talented way. Goes absolutely nuts because we've seen Spike Week Amari Cooper. I mean, we've seen this, guys. 51 points in week 16, 20 in week 15. This man is a Spike Week connoisseur. Okay, like the man can go absolutely bananas. So I'm in on Cooper. I think that's a great target right now. And yeah, you're right. I don't know if anyone would want to trade for Michael Pittman right now. I don't really.
True.
You know what the trade I
Takes
would do?
two
Actually,
to tango.
I would do this trade in a heartbeat. I'd trade Pittman for Shaheed, like straight up in a second, like that. That's like as fair as it's gonna get too.
Which side do you want?
I want Shaheed. I'd give up.
Yeah,
Pittman
we know
for
what
Shaheed.
side he
I'm
wants.
just making
Easy.
sure. I was like,
Easy.
before I comment on this, I was like, let's talk offline. No, I would do that.
So we just talked about the Browns offense. So I'm going to talk about one of the more exciting offenses in the NFL, and that is the Denver Broncos offense. Ladies, I'm sorry.
This
gentlemen.
could not be more different than the two wide receivers we just talked about.
This is a gnarly one because much like Amari Cooper being a major positive regression candidate, Courtland Sutton is due. He's due for a pretty big game here. He's the wide receiver 12 in expected fantasy points per game. And he's like, I have my notes here somewhere, and it's just garbanzo beans. But he's the wide receiver 64 in fantasy points per game. He should score 17 points per game with his usage, like the targets he's getting, where he's getting targeted, but he's averaging 8.4 points. I understand that Bo Nix is a work in progress. This offense is kind of a mess. They can't run the ball. They're figuring it out. But Sutton leads the team in routes, targets per route run, target percentage, ADOT, and end zone targets. Like these are all the things that we want from a wide receiver. And you're not going to have to pay up much to get Courtland Sutton. No one is getting excited about Courtland Sutton, but he has one of the most valuable roles in all of fantasy football. He's a prime positive regression candidate. And over the next 6 weeks, he gets matchups against the Raiders, Panthers, and Ravens, who have sneakily not been a good secondary. So like, I think that the Sutton owner would just be kind of ready to wash the Broncos stink off of his roster and just say, I'm good. I'm over it. I really don't want to watch Bo Nix play quarterback. I'll take anything. Maybe I'll get a running back. I'm weak on running back. I'll get rid of my wide receiver 4. And I think you wouldn't have to give up much for one of the more valuable roles in fantasy football with a guy who's produced. He's been a valuable flex option throughout his career. Like you could trade DeAndre Swift, who's been one of the more ultra disappointing players in football. You could trade him straight up.
Yeah,
for
hey,
Courtland
if anybody
Sutton.
in our league that we're all in together wants to buy DeAndre Swift for me right now, I would love that. I might have to hit the Courtland Sutton owner right now.
I'm telling you, if you were a casual and you're like, it's DeAndre Swift, he's been good before. Courtland Sutton sucks ass. I'll do that. I feel like you could get that done. Look at how lowly he's valued here from ETR. You could trade Braylon Allen, who's fun. He's a nice handcuff with a little flex appeal, for Courtland Sutton straight up.
Okay, hey, wait. This is great. I just went and looked it up. Who has him in our league? Aidan. Can I interest you in a share of DeAndre Swift for your Courtland Sutton share?
I regret to inform you, I will not be making that deal, Keegan.
Okay, offline. It'll be in your inbox tonight.
Who would you trade him for then? Because you actually have a Sutton share. Who would you take the deal?
Let me go look at the rankings and see. Like,
don't worry, I've got plenty of other lowly running backs you can have, like
Jerome
Spears, Jalen Warren, Rico Dowdle. Who do you want?
I'm probably moving him for like Jerome Ford, Jonathan Brooks, because he's your wide receiver 4 or 5, which like he's just on my bench. I'd probably go and upgrade my running back position personally.
Yeah, Swift will just be on your bench too. Why don't you just
not
take him off my hands?
He's the
Swiss.
You're the Bears guy, man.
You are nailing it, guys. You are nailing it. This is the exact type of trade people try and make, right? Where they're like, my RB2 sucks. Like I'm playing Rico Dowdle as my RB2 right now. I've got Sutton, who I don't even play. Like this is just Keegan's strategy, right? It was 0 RB. Sutton's his wide receiver 5 or 6. He needs a running back to go get. I'm telling you, Jerome Ford, we like Jerome Ford, but Nick Chubb, whatever. But like Sutton, I'm telling you, is due for positive regression. And you could put him in a lineup with buys and injuries and potentially hit home because of the role that he has. Now his ADOT doesn't mix super well with Bo Nix's game. But we already started to see a little bit positive momentum on Sutton's season with a 13-point outing. He's cleared 11 targets 2 out of 3 weeks so far.
I might play him this week if Sam Laporta can't go.
He's running so many routes too. I know you mentioned that, Shaun, but he's ran 100 routes this year. Good for 17th most in the NFL total at wide receiver. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah, just be patient. But
He's gonna
don't
have some good games.
don't do it for DeAndre Swift. Whatever you do, if you're a Sutton owner, do not give him up for DeAndre. Don't give up anything for DeAndre Swift.
But if they do not listen to the Regression Meme podcast, go steal Courtland Sutton. That's your prerogative if you can. Like
Go Sutton your
Courtland.
Courtland. Yeah, if you can in the middle of the night. Yeah.
Courtland your Sutton or Sutton your Courtland. Wow. That's got me.
I think Sutton it.
Sutton your Court. Yeah. Okay. Sutton your Courtland. I like
All
that.
right. Let's wrap this up. Let's put a bow on it.
So we are buying Mike Evans. We are buying Amari Cooper, and we are buying Courtland Sutton. This is a poo-poo platter of disappointing guys so far throughout this season. But hey, these are called buy lows. All right. We're trying to help you win your leagues. Go get receivers, even though you probably have receivers and you desperately need running backs. But you should go get these guys because they're going to be helpful to your team. Before we jump, Aidan, anything to say to the listeners at home?
Good luck on your waivers tonight. No, you probably won't hear this till Wednesday, but or Thursday. But I hope you win all your waivers. I hope you guys won all your bids. I hope everyone won their bids, and you didn't pay 66% for Alan Lazard.
Our friend did do that. Our friend did. Hey, Lazard's been pretty solid.
He might be on to something. And he
But
spent his remaining 30 on QJ, so maybe he just knows ball.
Yeah, that's true.
YKB. All right, boys. Thank you again for hopping on. We'll see you later in the week for rankings. And if you have any questions about trades, you made any trades, you want our opinions, you have somebody who sent an offer, you want our opinions, drop in the comments below. We'll help you out. All right, everybody. Until next time.